Hey real estate nerds, this is Alex Yoder with Pro Tip Tuesday, my favorite day of the week. And today I want to answer this question: should everybody be a landlord? And the answer is no. Now you might think, hey Alex, you're a property manager. Why wouldn't you want everyone to be a landlord so that you can manage all the houses? Well, the reality is it's not fun being a property manager for owners that shouldn't be landlords. I know that's harsh, I know that's blunt, but that's the truth. And so this video, the intent of this video is to kind of talk about what that really means and what that means in terms of preparing emotionally and financially to actually rent out a house to a stranger, or a unit, or an apartment unit, condo, whatever, to a stranger. So first of all, statistically speaking, and this is kind of vague and a little subjective, but if you are screening people reasonably well, based on what we've seen, about 1.5-ish out of every 10 tenants is going to not be good. And by not be good, what I mean is they will owe a balance, or they will cause damage to your property. Basically, they will owe you something above their security deposit because of unpaid rents or damages or whatever it is. Now, of that 1.5 out of 10, that 15%, the average amount that 15% owes to you above the deposit will be in the $2,000 range, around $2,000. Now, there are times when you end up with a $10,000 turnover because there was major damages to the property, carpet and paint and all the big stuff. But on average, the amount owed above deposit, based on what I've seen in Colorado Springs, is around $2,000. So I think you should be mentally prepared for the fact that if you're renting a home to strangers, they're going to go through divorces, they're going to lose jobs, they're going to experience life just like everybody else. And so even if you're screening well, people may not always be great tenants because life happens, or they screen well, they pay their bills on time, this kind of stuff, but they are a nightmare to deal with. Now, that's not really what I'm referring to in the 1.5 or the 15%. In that remaining 8.5%, you may have people that are awful to interact with, cussing you out, just being crazy. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people who owe money, because at the end of the day, if they're paying the rent and maintaining the house, I can deal with a little crazy. And so I think that if you're getting into this as a property manager, as a landlord, whatever, if you're interacting in a landlord capacity with strangers, you have to be prepared mentally and financially to disconnect from the asset. It is now an investment only, and I'm going to treat it that way. And I know going into this that people are not going to maintain the house like I did. They're not going to maintain the lawn like I did. They're not going to treat it like I did. They're not going to care as much as I do, on average. And things are going to happen. Things are going to break. And it's not always black and white who maybe caused it. There's an inherent cost to owning real estate. And there are times where we as landlords eat bills that we're thinking to ourselves, man, could that have been avoided if there was a reasonable amount of care, or if somebody had taken some steps to troubleshoot a little bit better on their own before I send a vendor out. Those things are going to happen. And that is just a part of the game. That's just a part of the game. There's going to be expenses. This video was semi-inspired by a property owner that we interacted with some time ago, who was really, really, really upset over a $300 furnace repair. I could have done it myself for half the amount. I could have found a cheaper vendor. I could have. Over $300. And so that's a good example, maybe an extreme example. But if you are not ready emotionally or financially for a stranger to be in your house, and for the house to not be cared for like you cared for it, if you are not ready to disconnect emotionally from the property and to treat it like an investment, either try to get there and check yourself. And I'm not saying I'm innocent. I mean, when I first rented out my very first property, I was way more tied up into it, and I had to check myself. Okay, it's just an investment. Calm down. People are going to be different than I am. Not only were they raised differently, but their brains work differently. Things that I think are crazy, they think are normal, and that's just the dynamics of humanity. And so I think you have to get there in order to be a successful long-term landlord. Now, I understand that there are lots of people that are in a place where they don't want to be landlords, but they have no choice. So I'm not trying to be too harsh. I get it. Things happen. We got to do what we got to do. But even if you're in that situation where you don't even think, you think to yourself, I probably shouldn't be a landlord. Even if you're one of those people, do your darndest to connect with in my opinion, I don't think self-managing is going to be a great idea. And I think you should do your best to connect with an experienced property manager who can set expectations and tell you kind of what you're in for and what the risks are and what could go sideways, so that you're kind of ready to get into it. And then as you're going into it, when the craziness does happen, because it will happen. You know, if you think it's going to be totally smooth, you really shouldn't be a landlord. The craziness will happen. And so make sure that they are experienced and knowledgeable and lean on their expertise and their advice as you go through those situations, and utilize your expert as you go through it instead of second guessing everything. And understand that most of us are not looking for the cheapest vendor on stuff either. You know, I mentioned the $300. We are looking for quality people who are professional, who bill well, who guarantee their work, all of these other things other than just who's the cheapest guy. And I think that's wise as well. So anyway, challenges are part of the game, and position yourself mentally, or maybe sell your house instead or find some other option, because not everyone should be a landlord. Hopefully this was helpful. We'll see you next week.